options moving forward for Jamaica. Whips one into the area, flick towards goal, and an opener for Jamaica.
So the Reggae Boyz managed to squeeze out 3 points, but it was very, and I mean very, forgettable victory. This is British Virgin Island versus Jamaica review show. Yeah, people, welcome back to Jump Hill Fun, and I'm here to display my 3 key takeaways from Jamaica's match against the BVI. Starting right away with the first point, the struggles continue. Alright, if you have been a long time follower of this channel, you know how we start. We normally go with the starting lineup, of course, and it's a lineup I don't think any fan or media personnel literally saw coming. McLaren stuck with the 4-3-3 as we expected, but the first thing that would jump at you on the paper is that there was no Hayden in the starting 11 or even in the squad whatsoever. It wasn't made clear what happened to him, but a little bit of whispering I heard is that he was feeling a bit ill. So it comes back down now to the fact that we carried only 5 midfielders in the squad and none of them are backup specialists CDM. So McLaren had to be a bit creative and he decided to put Damian Lowe in the starting 11 in that position. There was a change at left back as Bell made way for Greg Lee. Of course, Andrea Blake captained the squad, and then the fellow midfielders in the middle of the park was also a bit of a surprise. Expected Gray to be there, but I did not expect John Russell to also be in the lineup. Bailey was also at the bench in favor of Dixon, and Cephas and Brown were the other starting members. So immediately I look at this team and I was a bit worried. As I stated in my previous show, I will want 2 number 10s to roam that midfield because we all expect to have majority of the ball. I like John Russell as a player, of course. He had a very good Unity Cup, but in a game and setup like this one, I just don't think his best attributes would necessarily help the team. I'm quite sure if I'm able to ask Steve McLaren why would John Russell in the squad, I'm quite sure he would tell me he has a knack of popping up in the box and getting some goals. And he's not exactly wrong there, and in fact, Russell sure really got one today with a big chance right here, but apart from that, he was largely ineffective because the midfield was a bit bare and he would join majority of the other green shirts in the box, just sitting on their hands and waiting for service. And of course, without Hayden to dare to try to facilitate some good passing in the middle of the park, a lot of the creative pressure fell to Demarai Gray, who had to buzz around in the middle of the park on his own to try and create something out of nothing. But I don't want to blame Jamaica's slow performance just on how the midfield was displaying, because everyone attacking overall simply looked like they were moving around in mud. They were slow to come to the ball, they were slow to make spaces, and then the passing, oh my god, they seemed to lack any direction, lack any ideas, and lacked any pace, especially in the final third when they came up against the 2 blockades of yellow shirts. But we all knew this was going to happen, we all saw it coming, so I'm still baffled that Steve McLaren did not start Palmer along with Gray in that middle of the park or even showed Ravel Morrison in the game whatsoever. We did manage to get a goal in that first half. It came from the set piece, as you can see right there. A beautiful delivery by Gray and a good header from Warner Brown. But apart from the goal, Brown was largely not seen throughout the whole match. And again, it's not necessarily his fault because the passing and service was simply not existent. And what is even more discouraging is that after we got the goal, we all thought the floodgates would open, but it actually seemed that the Jamaican team went even more in relaxed mode and was simplifying to knocking the ball around like what you're seeing on screen right here, and was looking quite content with the 1-0 lead. I mean, just look at the first half stats. We dominate possession, which is no surprise, with 68%, but we only managed 5 total shots, 3 on target. But here's the real stat I want to highlight. We only created 1 big chance in 45 minutes against a team ranked 207th. So it just seems that the ghost of Christmas past is at us again, where we simply look too slow and void of any ideas to break down a low block. We start with Cuba, we start with St. Vincent, and we start with Dunrep as well. Enough time for me to say we are clearly a transition team and we will struggle against a low block. Hopefully we rectify this at the National Stadium on Tuesday. Point number 2, the one creative spark. Alright, I mentioned his name before, but there was one player I thought that, tried his best out there. The one player I thought that was looking the most creative and was clearly the man of the match. Demarai Gray, I felt, in all things considered, had a very good game, and he did well to bring any true class to this Reggae Boyz performance. There was a lot of chatter leading up to this match with the former Cephas on the left wing. What would Steve McLaren do with Demarai Gray? but today he showed maybe having him playing the number 10 role isn't such a bad thing after all. I mean, just look at this ridiculous pass out to Dixon right here in the start of the second half, which Dixon kind of messed up, but at least we saw 1, 2 or 3 moments of this from Gray that led an improved second half from the Reggae Boyz, which should at least saw us got 2 or 3 more goals. Of course, we should not get carried away. This was the lonely British Virgin Islands, but when you see the sheer average display from his rest of his teammates, he definitely shines bright today as the lone star. I will give him another chance at the number 10 role against Guatemala on Tuesday. Alright, point number 3, fielding despair. Again, we did mention in the preview on Friday that the environment, especially the pitch itself in British Virgin Island, may play a factor in how the boys perform on the day. And after watching the match, I feel a bit sorry for them because clearly that was not a pitch where it would be easy to produce good football. I mean, look at a good example right here when the ball played into Gray and here at the top of the box, where the ball simply bubbled about before reaching the number 11, forcing the former Premier League player to have a bad touch and pop the ball in the air. There were many instances of this throughout the game, and when you add the fact that the field seemed even smaller than it appears in pictures, it can be a bit difficult to get around a team that's parking the bus. But we can't fully use this as an excuse. Both teams had to play on the same pitch, and I still felt the players did not help themselves by playing with such lack of urgency in the final third. I mean, if this was a do or die match to determine our World Cup qualifying fate, I guarantee you all 11 men in green would have played much better than what you saw yesterday. Furthermore, I was pitch side for the JPL final at the National Stadium, and honestly, it is not in the greatest shape either, and when you factor in that they had a Racers Grand Prix, our pitch might only be marginally better on Tuesday night. So they better approach with the right mentality to not to really factor in the state of the pitch. But alright, before I wrap this up, I want to look at 3 players specifically just to highlight how they looked in this game, starting with Ronaldo Cephas. I did state in the preview that this type of match really doesn't suit his skill set, and it has proven so once again today. With a jam-packed final third and a small bubbly pitch, Cephas honestly didn't have much space to really work his magic throughout this game, and thus he was largely ineffective, and this is where, for him to be a complete footballer, he has to find another weapon to strike fear in his opponent apart from his raw speed. The other player I want to focus on quickly is Damian Lowe. Damian Lowe. I'm quite sure he was a bit surprised to get the start as a center defensive midfielder, although a lot of times in the game it also seemed that he was on the right side of a back three. I am not sure if it's by design, but sometimes low positioning just seems a bit chaotic. But what I will give him credit for is that he was trying to do a role that is clearly not suited for him. There were many times, especially in the first half, he would take the ball off his centre box and would try his best to find some line-splitting passes, and although many of those failed, I did like the intent that he was trying to conjure up something. But again, if he's only going to be a backup CDM, I'm not sure he should be part of this team. Alright, the last player I want to look at now is Romario Williams. I did state in the previous show that he's a different type of player from the likes of Burrell and Warner Brown, and if the game wasn't going Jamaica's way, expect him to come in the game and play some meaningful minutes. Well, McLaren did exactly that. He brought him on in roughly the 50th minute to hold the ball and cause some trouble in the box, and as a result, his performance was a bit mixed. One thing I would say though, he was clearly hungry for goals, and while he had some good decent attempt and came close with the shot off the post, there were other moments I felt he was a bit too selfish, and it could have really helped playing one of his teammates for them to get their crack and goal. But there are some people who believe there's nothing wrong with your number 9 being that goal hungry. Oh, and who knows, perhaps on another day he would have himself a brace. But anyway, at the end of the day, I guess it's job done. We officially qualified for the next phase of World Cup qualifying. It's no chance of catching Guatemala on goal difference right now, but we can beat them on Tuesday to still top the group. But in terms of this performance, it's alarming as we again show our weaknesses when it comes to breaking down a low block, something I'm quite sure our fellow Conqueror rivals will take notes of. Who knows, maybe it was simply just the pitch alone for real, but I guess they have another chance to prove us wrong on Tuesday night against Guatemala at 6 p.m. But finally for this match, I want to wipe it from memory and simply move on with my life. But let me know what you guys think about the performance of the Reggae Boyz here against BVI. Is it something to worry about going forward, or was it simply a blip in the system? Also let me know if this performance now deter you from going to the match at the National Stadium on Tuesday evening, or even picking up the remote to watch the match on TV if you're overseas. But otherwise, thank you all for watching, and please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you all up to date on more of the Reggae Boyz leading up to hopefully a World Cup qualification later this year. Otherwise, for great Reggae Boyz content, you're already at the right place. Jump your fan. YouTube, big up yourself.